During the third meeting about the Township of Tiny Administrative Center, Mayor Davis Evans and Director of Public Works, Tim Leitch, assured residents that their feedback would be integrated into the final design. However, they both did not offer to reconsider what many residents called an unnecessary and expensive project. Janet Stewart of Unity Design Studio detailed the project goals and design features, emphasizing low environmental impact, universal accessibility, and sustainability. She also highlighted plans for a community hub with council chambers, community rooms, and meeting spaces. Residents raised concerns about the project's cost, size, and necessity of all proposed features. They also suggested including multifunctional spaces like baseball courts, playgrounds, and wellness areas while calling for a more welcoming design with indigenous features. The next step involved finalizing the selection of construction manager who will oversee the project's execution to stay within the budget and timeline. The project will then move into detailed design phases where specific aspects of the building architect, interior, and landscaping will be finalized. This phase will incorporate feedback from residents to ensure the facility meets community needs. Ongoing public engagement will be facilitated through an ad hoc committee, encouraging continuous resident input and ensuring the project's transparency and responsiveness to public concerns and suggestions. Following is the video of the meeting.
Thank you, Director Leitch, and welcome everybody. Thank you for coming out tonight. Good to see a lot of familiar faces. Thanks very much, and such a nice evening. So we will start at 6, and Tim will go through the agenda, but I just wanted to say thank you, and we'll make sure that we're done at 8 p.m. So as you know, Council has approved the new Tiny Township Administrative Center and has directed staff and the Tiny Administrative Center Committee towards building a new administrative center here in Tiny. The purpose of these meetings is to seek feedback from all of you on the public features of the new administration center, such as programming space, recreational programming, and community events. The public spaces, both indoor and outdoor, and accessibility features that go along with this new facility. Today we will be sharing some of the major product milestones and renderings of the interior and the exterior of the building as well. And I also want to let you know that the Council is moving forward with creating an ad hoc committee comprised of members of the public, 7 members of the public, a staff resource, and a member of Council to review suggestions from these PICs and all public input, regardless of we have different avenues to gain public input into the public portion of the buildings in terms of what we include moving forward. So we're excited about this opportunity and for the public to get involved and to give us some direct information. So that's exciting. If you're interested in joining this committee, Tim will talk about a little bit. We did, submissions were open until July 29th. We will be revisiting it at our meeting next week on August 7th, so on Wednesday. So we're really excited about this project. It's not just an administration center. It's an opportunity to create something in Tiny that acts as a community hub and acts as a place for the community, not just to garner synergies and efficiencies from a staffing perspective, but also to provide a place that speaks for Tiny and provides for our community and benefits our community now and for the future. So with that, my portion is done. I'll pass it over to Director Leitch. And I just want to mention, just for those of you in person, it's the first virtual session we've done. Actually, we've had 4 sessions, public information sessions, since we started this in December. But the third in this series. And we do like the series. I hope please give us feedback going forward. But we have done another PIC with our water management plan, and I think it went really well. So we like to, explore new opportunities to garner feedback, and we think this is something that we're really excited about. So Director Leitch is here, and sitting beside me is our acting CAO, Haley LeBlanc, just so those in the crowd know who we are, and staff are on the other side there. So take it away, Tim. Thanks.
Thank you, Mayor Evans. As Mayor Evans had indicated, this is the third PIC in a series of 3 that we've held just recently over the last few weeks. The first 2 are virtual, and this one is we're having in person, or called hybrid. The other one was in December of 2023. So again, what we're going to just go through on the agenda very briefly here, some key terms that just make sure that everybody understands what we're talking about. Acronyms are alive and well. We're going to review the housekeeping and protocol for the PIC that we have this evening. Unity Design Studios is the architects that were awarded this package. They will be doing their presentation. And then we're going to have a question and answer session about the public features and the accessibility within the program. And then also at the very end, after all of that, I'll be going through the next steps on the program. So some of the key terms that you're going to hear this evening, AODA is the Accessibility for Ontarians with Disabilities Act. That's a key part of our design. Janet will get into a lot of detail on that. The TTAC is the Township of Tiny Administrative Center. The TTAC is the committee that's made up of, for the Administration Center, of staff and 2 members of council. The ad hoc committee, which Mayor Evans just spoke about, is a public committee to review and make recommendations on the public space for the TTAC. The date did expire on the 29th. However, it will be reviewed, as Mayor Evans did discuss at our August 7th council meeting. Lastly is Unity, or UDS, which is Unity Design Studios, and they're the Township of Tiny's architects for the TTAC project, and they're formerly known as LET Architects. Some of the items, just some housekeeping and protocol. Since this is a live meeting and we do have public members inside of the council chambers, as you know, from an exit standpoint, if there is an emergency exit that does need to occur, obviously we have the exit out this door that you came in. If that's blocked for any reason, you can go out these doors and then straight up the stairs outside of the building. So if there's any emergencies, you'll hear alarms and we'll notify you accordingly. We would appreciate if kept your cell phones on silent so it doesn't get interrupted. That would be very good. So the PICs, or public information centers, are intended to seek feedback on the public spaces and accessibility of the TTAC. Input from the PIC will assist in planning for the public features of the center and also will impact our budget considerations. Interior office space, and that's where the staff works, will be designed to the Ontario Public Service Modern Office Space Guideline V2.0. This guideline is contained in a previous Public Works report, 013-24, which is available online. And that will be talking about how we design the office space for the staff. We won't be discussing that this evening, but with the Ontario Public Service office layout, this is what's really driving how you do designs for public service buildings. So it's pretty standardized, and we'll be following this, this guideline for the office staff part of it. As I indicated, tonight's meeting will be for the public space. Questions about the feasibility, are we moving forward with the building or not? Those questions will not be answered virtually or at the meeting tonight. As Mayor Evans did indicate, council has directed staff to proceed with building the town hall, so that will not be discussed this evening. And anybody who has those questions, if it comes in virtually, we won't be reading them. And if people come up for the questions, we will not be answering them. So just so everybody knows in advance, and we want to maximize this time, so please make sure that your questions are related to the public space and the accessibility features that we do have within the building. As it says, the Q&A sessions about public features and accessibility, and we'll have those after the presentation from Unity. So if you can save your questions or comments until then, when the presentation is complete, we'll have them all then. That'll leave us probably about an hour total that we'll be able to have questions coming up. Questions will be responded to in order of receipt and directed to the appropriate resource. These questions, there's the three of us here, myself, Mayor Evans, and Director Laban, that we will be answering questions that come up throughout the evening. And also unanswered questions, they can be submitted obviously through our new town hall at tiny.ca. It's a website that's set up dedicated for these questions. In questions that we have in the chambers, we'll ask that if you can just line up. We won't be taking cards 1, 2, 3, or so. If you can just line up, and then we'll take the questions one at a time. We'll alternate between virtual questions and council chambers questions, and we'll try to do the best we can. We're going to put a 2-minute limit on these, just so that we can make sure that we cover as many questions as we can. Also, virtually or in person, if you have more than one question, we want to get through everybody's questions first, and then if we have time, then others that have second questions or third questions, whatever we have, we'll make sure that that does occur. Statements or inappropriate, anonymous, or repeat questions will not be answered. So we want to make sure this is a respectful evening. We want to get your input on the public space and the accessibility features. Also, make sure that when Janet's doing your presentation or any of us are talking, that we respect that whoever has the microphone, that we keep our comments to ourselves, and then we take one at a time turns to ask questions, and that's just basic respect for each of us, and that's for us to you and you to us. We will leave enough time, as I indicated, at the end for lots of questions. So save them up for the end, and I'm very excited now to hand the floor over to Janet Stewart. She's with Unity Design, and she'll be walking through a very extensive review of the facility, of the public spaces, and some of the unique features that we'll be having within this building. So again, I thank everybody for taking the time to come to see us tonight and sit through this 2 hours. We will be ending at 8 o'clock sharp, and this session will be over at that time. So again, thank you for attending and your patience and time, and I'll hand the floor over to Janet. Janet?
Thank you, Tim. Thank you, Mayor Evans, Tiny Township staff, and thanks to all of you who have joined us in the council chambers and who have joined us online this evening. I'm really pleased to be here on behalf of Unity Design Studio. You know, our team has been working with the township since last fall to develop a schematic design for the administrative center project. And I'm pleased to have this opportunity to take the next 50 minutes or so to walk you through the design. We are asking for your suggestions on what types of public uses and public use spaces that you would like to see prioritized in the design. So we are very much looking forward to your feedback. So to begin, at the outset of the project, we set 5 goals that we felt the project should strive to meet in order for it to set itself up for success for the next 60 plus years, as that will be the project's anticipated lifespan. And these 5 goals are to employ low-impact site development strategies, to enable universal accessibility, to enhance public services and spaces, to achieve regenerative design, and to achieve resilience by meeting a post-disaster standard of design and construction. So the first goal has to do with employing low-impact site development strategies so that we can minimize the overall impact of the development on the site. And the site being township owned and having proximity to both the operations complex and the waterworks and its potential to tie into the Tiny Trail system offers us much beauty, much passive recreation potential, and access to the resources that we need for this development. Some of you might remember that decades ago, this entire site was earmarked for development as a potential industrial park, and then sometime later, potentially for aggregate extraction. But the intent now is to retain its public use for the administrative center, but also to protect and enhance the site's natural features. To assist in achieving a low-impact development, the township has currently undertaking 5 site studies and assessments that will guide us in determining the best strategy for locating driveways, parking areas, types of stormwater and sanitary management measures, locations, and types of planting buffers, as well as the location of the new building itself. The first study underway is an analysis of the site's hydrology, hydrogeological, and wellhead protection zones. We simply want to ensure that the placement of site development features will not negatively alter groundwater or surface water flows, and that all aspects of the development remain outside of the current wellhead protection zone. The second study underway will look at traffic impact. This will guide us on the design, size, location, and configuration of the new entrance driveway and any potential impacts as a result of traffic growth along Concession Road 9 East over the next 10 years. Obviously, this growth would be attributed to increased flows to accommodate staff and visitors to the new site and building. The third study underway is an environmental impact study. This is being undertaken with oversight from the Severn Sound Environmental Agency, and the time frame of this study extends from early spring of this year to late fall to ensure that all natural features or occurrences are captured. As we are aware of a documented population of ice-aged or Fort Threond grass at the nearby Huronia Airport, we are planning to undertake a detailed survey in September for this very rare species, as that is the window for best chances of discovery. This will be completed by an experienced biologist with specialist skills in plant identification. Overall, the study will include mapping of vegetation community types, screening for endangered butternut and black ash trees, bat habitat trees, amphibian breeding grounds, dawn and evening bird breeding bird species, and assessment of any potential species at risk. The assessments will require species-specific surveys and specialized methodologies appropriate to the season, time of day, and weather conditions. And what we will learn from this is what portions of the site that can be developed, which should be avoided, and any opportunities for enhancement, restoration, or monitoring of any natural features. The fourth study underway is a stage 1 archaeological assessment. This will determine the presence of any archaeological resources on the site that might indicate occupation by groups which might include the Beausoleil First Nation, Chippewas of Georgina Island First Nation, Chippewas of Rama First Nation, Huron-Wendat Nation, the Métis Nation of Ontario, the Moose Deer Point First Nation, and the Wata Mohawks. The team conducting the assessment has built up really strong and positive working relationships with these Indigenous partners. And while direct engagement is not typically required for a phase 1 assessment, we do recognize that this will enrich and further the township's relationships with these communities. And we now know that the assessment will involve direct consultation with the Huron-Wendat Nation, the Moose Deer Point First Nation, and the Wata Mohawks, as they have come forward to express interest in the project. And so we will be coordinating directly with them as we conduct the field work. The fifth and final study is the undertaking of a tree preservation plan. This will identify and map existing trees on the site with a view to evaluate the health and value of trees to determine preservation priorities. This preservation plan will be adhered to during all stages of design and construction. And Mayor Evans has also decreed that any tree required to be removed for the purpose of the development, 3 new trees will be planted. And in addition, we will ensure any lumber harvested as a result be repurposed in the construction of the development. Just going back to the project goals now, the second goal that we set for the project is to enable the highest degree of universal accessibility to ensure that the new administrative center will welcome and accommodate everyone, no matter their age or level of abilities. And universal accessibility is fundamentally about these three things: ensuring safety, dignity, and independence for everyone. Tiny Township has a very diverse population of English-speaking, French-speaking, Indigenous, and immigrant permanent and seasonal residents, all of whom represent multiple generations and all who have varying degrees of physical and cognitive abilities, and all having unique needs. So inclusivity is what we're aiming to achieve so that everyone feels welcome and able to enjoy the facility as independently as possible and with the dignity that we all deserve. Here in Ontario, we have many accessibility guidelines to follow. We have the Canadian Standards Association B651-18, Accessible Design for the Built Environment. We have AODA, Accessibility for Ontarians with Disabilities Act. We have the City of London's Accessibility Guidelines, which have been adopted by many municipalities across Ontario. And we have the minimum requirements as legislated into the updated 2024 Ontario Building Code. However, the one that we have chosen to use as our guide for this project is the Rick Hansen Foundation Accessibility Certification Guideline, which exceeds all the others in best practices and is one of the most respected accessibility guidelines across Canada. So here's the concept that we've developed for the ground floor plan of the new facility with all of the major space uses identified. There is an area earmarked for a potential basement level on the left-hand side for staff facilities, records and equipment storage, and a new emergency operations center that has access to a freight elevator. The darker shaded spaces on this plan signify space devoted to administrative and departmental use, with the lighter shaded spaces signifying all public use spaces. So let me walk you through some of the examples of the accessibility initiatives that we have incorporated in the design. There will be a passenger drop-off and pickup zone with clear markings, tactile accessible indicators, and ample space for maneuvering. The area will have ample illumination and be well signed. Accessible parking spaces will be clearly marked and have level access aisles and curb ramps. In addition, there will be tactile indicators leading to and from accessible parking areas to the main building entrances. And there are 4 main building entrances, 2 front entrances dedicated for public use, and 2 rear entrances dedicated for staff. All building entrances will have accessible tower-style power-operated door activators, hardware, and access controls. Vestibules and public service areas will all be accessible and feature a logical arrangement of circulation routes and facilities, so there is little chance of being disoriented or getting lost. There will be fully accessible paths of travel to all areas of the building. Major circulation corridors will be 5 feet wide, having 8-foot diameter turning circles at all changes of direction. And at the center of the public lobby will be a customer service counter. This counter will be universally accessible with variable heights for sitting and standing, adequate knee clearance, and privacy panels. And nearby, centrally located, there will be gender-neutral and universal family washroom facilities for both public and staff adjacent to the lobby and customer service areas. And the format for the gender-neutral washrooms provides everyone with a lockable private room equipped with a toilet and a wash basin for enhanced privacy and hygiene. So no 5-foot-high stalls with gaps around panels, no shared sinks. There will be intuitive wayfinding throughout the facility. supported by a number of sensory techniques. So you see three symbols overlaid on the plan, and the symbol on the left signifies signage, in this case Braille, and languages other than French and English can also be incorporated. The second symbol signifies auditory experience and use of acoustic mitigation so that spaces do not become overwhelmed by sound reflections, which can cause confusion. And the third symbol signifies light levels and how varying levels of brightness and use of natural light can make navigating a building more intuitive and far more pleasant. So assistive listening and communication enhancements will be provided in the council chambers, meeting rooms, and customer service areas. And these systems transmit amplified sound via hearing aids, headsets, or other devices. And some of the examples of the technologies available include infrared, induction loop, and FM systems, and portable systems are also available from the same audiovisual suppliers that will be equipping the conference and meeting spaces. And there's other measures that we are mindful of in terms of accessibility, and that is, for instance, to ensure that all floor surfaces are slip resistant and have no disoriented glare or busy patterns, as well as ample clearance and supports for service dogs. Adding service dogs to our language of signage symbols is a way to include a working dog presence in our buildings, even when an actual service animal isn't there. Used with enough frequency and over a long enough period of time that it becomes learned and culturally recognizable, this will serve to normalize the presence of working dogs in public facilities. So back now to the project goals. The third goal in the design is to ensure that we provide ample opportunities to enhance public services and spaces, whether it be spaces for public gatherings, indoor and outdoor, or opportunities for passive or active recreation on the site, or to have spaces to hold community group meetings or broader community events or celebrations. Even opportunities to display or incorporate the work of local artisans and artists. And these are areas that we are specifically asking you for your input on what you'd like to see prioritized or incorporated into the design. Let me walk you through the public areas of the facility. So we start with number one, the council chambers, whose circular shape and prominent location is very much a defining building feature. It will accommodate fixed seating for council and staff and up to 135 members of the public seated in chairs. The chambers will incorporate a retractable acoustic partition to allow for overflow into the lobby space and will feature a central skylight. Directly off the public lobby are 4 meeting rooms of varying sizes, all with full video conferencing capability. One that will accommodate up to 20 people occurs right across from the council chambers, one for up to 12 people at the other end of the lobby, and 2 that will accommodate up to 4 to 6 people on either side of the public service counter. The third area is adjacent to the council chambers, and it's a community room that will accommodate approximately 200 people in chairs or 130 people seated at tables. And at one end of the community room is a large catering kitchen and servery that opens up to the room. And at the other end is space for table and chair storage for setting up events in any of the public areas. And the community room will have access to an outdoor terrace for indoor-outdoor events that might also be screened to maintain privacy for the main terrace that links the 2 main entrances that lead from the parking areas. At each of these entrances is a large canopy that provides cover for bicycle and e-bike storage, along with charging stations. And these two entrances are connected on the inside by the public lobby. And the public lobby creates circulation that moves in a circular fashion. So again, navigation is intuitive and there is less opportunity to get disoriented. And the public lobby itself is meant to be a dynamic space anchored by the public service counter in the center of the space. Above the counter will be a linear skylight that will always flood the lobby with natural light at any time during the day. And the lobby will also double as a gallery space, featuring curved stone walls that are intended to be a backdrop for the showcasing of community arts and artifacts. There's also going to be public seating along the perimeter of the community room, across from the customer service counter that has direct access to the public washrooms, and additional opportunities to incorporate the work of artisans include a permanent feature wall in the lobby, an outdoor sculpture at each entrance, and a decorative screen on the outside of the windows into the council chambers, all which could be the subject of a public art competition. And once our site studies are complete and we have sited the building, there will be future opportunities to develop and connect to other public features, such as seating areas, passive recreation areas, and trails across the site. So we hope you make note of some of these features and let us know what you like, or perhaps what we have missed. So I'd like to share with you some schematic renderings of the interior and exterior of the building to give you an idea of the look and feel that we're proposing for the spaces. So this first view is an interior view of the public lobby with the main public service counter on the right. And the major materials that you can see here are natural wood, natural stone, glass, and polished concrete with metal accents. Looking over at the right-hand side, you can see the public service counter with the long linear skylight above that provides the space with a dramatic connection to the sky. And the intent here is to utilize the structure of the skylight to create portals for privacy between distinct service areas. So these portals could be created with panels of perhaps metal, created by metal artisans or finished carpenters out of wood. And the counter is long enough to provide service kiosks or computers for public use as well. On the left-hand side are large pivoting panels that open up from the community room, in which will feature soft seating between the panels to create a linear lounge area. And what look like leaves that have blown into the space from outside is a suggestion of thin bronze metal sculptures embedded directly into the concrete floor, something that might enchant children and adults alike. In this view, we are looking at the council chambers from the public lobby with acoustic partition fully retracted, so you can see the overflow that we can get from the chambers into the lobby. And to the left of this view is a seating area with a feature wall whose design, again, could be the subject of a public art competition. In this view, we are in the council chambers to give you a sense of the scale and the quality of light. And the chambers will undergo detailed design to ensure that all technologies related to connectivity, audiovisual, accessibility, sightlines, security, lighting, and appropriate furnishings are accounted for and well integrated. So we now move to the administrative office area where all departmental managers and staff will be accommodated on the outside perimeter of the building that curves and looks out onto a naturally forested area. The features of this space include exposed wood ceilings and walls, All workstations at this point are grouped into team pods of 8 to minimize the open concept office feeling and to allow access to natural light and views. All offices are on the interior with all glass fronts to take advantage of the same light and views. And staff growth has been factored into the design in a modular fashion, with an additional bay accommodating 3 offices and 8 workstations having been added for this purpose. We would like to point out, as Tim mentioned earlier, that all sizes for workstations, offices, and meeting areas follow the new December 2023 Ontario Public Service Workspace Guidelines. Moving now to the exterior, here's a view of the outside of where we just were. We can see the curved administrative area. And here we intend to capture rainwater that will fall from a shallow sloped roof along the perimeter of the building. It'll fall like a curtain into a rain garden that will recharge groundwater because we are managing all stormwater features on the site. And here's an aerial view of the building. Here you can see the curved council chambers in the front, the community room to the right, and entrance canopies along the exterior terrace. Much of the roof will be flat, having drains so that we can harvest rainwater. And there will be a shallow sloped roof to shed water into the rain garden along the perimeter of the curved area at the rear. And you can see the skylight at the center of the council chambers and the tall linear skylight above the customer service counter in the public lobby. Back now to the project goals, number 4, to achieve a regenerative design. The highest level of sustainability for the project for educational, environmental, and economic reasons. Educational, to illustrate how a building need not be complex, but can be actually rather simple in its approach to achieving a regenerative design. The environmental reason, to promote responsible resource use, conservation, and biodiversity. An economic reason, not just to invest in long-term delivery of public services, but to increase resilience to severe climate events, probably the township's greatest risk, and to promote energy security, as well as an emerging local bioeconomy in renewable forestry products. Just a note on the difference between sustainable and regenerative. So a sustainable design focuses on minimizing negative environmental impact by using resources efficiently and reducing waste and emissions. By contrast, a regenerative design goes beyond sustainability by actively restoring and improving the environment, creating a positive ecological footprint and enhancing the health and resilience of the surrounding ecosystem. This involves integrating natural processes, promoting biodiversity, and contributing to the regeneration of natural systems. And so to achieve regenerative design, we have identified 4 important pathways: a path to net zero energy, a path to net zero carbon, a path to water conservation, and a path to biodiversity. Starting with path to net zero energy. What does that mean? It means that the building will not burn any fossil fuels that would emit any pollutants over its operational lifetime. And we have a 3-step pathway to achieve this goal. Step number 1, we employ what we call a passive strategy, and that involves improving the thermal performance of the exterior walls and the roof of the building by increasing the amount of insulation in the walls and roof and upgrading to triple glazed windows. Step number 2, we reduce heating and cooling loads by employing geothermal wells on the site. And the principle of geothermal wells is simple. They bring in the temperature of the ground into the building, And that temperature is at a constant 55 degrees Fahrenheit or 13 degrees Celsius. Think of the ideal temperature of a wine cellar. And you only need to heat that a little bit or cool it a little bit to achieve comfortable indoor temperatures so that the HVAC equipment doesn't have to be so large or work so hard. We also employ all LED lighting, which draws negligible energy and lasts 15 plus years, in addition to incorporating vacancy sensors and daylight harvesting. And daylight harvesting, what we mean by that is these are sensors in the building attached to light fixtures that dim the lights when they detect that the light levels offered by daylight through the windows alone are adequate to provide lighting into the interior spaces. And so all of these measures puts us in good stead towards achieving step number 3, and that is to generate on-site all clean, renewable electrical energy that is needed to operate the entire facility. Now that we've minimized the heating and cooling loads, and that the size and amount of equipment required to heat and cool the building has been minimized as well. And why are we doing this? That's a great question. So when we factor that this facility will be completed likely in 2027, that's 3 years short of the 2030 target for Canada to its emissions target to have or achieve 45% reduction in emissions. And we also think about the lifespan of the building, that it's only 23 short years or years short of the 2050 zero emissions target. So it just makes sense to build net zero operational emissions into the project now, while there is funding available to pay for that. Because when zero operational emissions become legislated into national and provincial building codes, that funding will likely disappear. The next is our path to net zero carbon. And how does that differ from net zero energy? Well, that's kind of 49% of the equation. Net zero carbon quantifies what is called the embodied carbon of construction materials. So before the facility is even open and operational, this examines the quantity of emissions that resulted from the manufacture of all the materials used in the construction: the wood, the drywall, the concrete, the steel, the aluminum, the plastics, the paint, as well as any emissions caused by transportation of these materials to the site. And so we are looking for a roadmap to achieve low to zero carbon embodied materials. And for this, again, we have a 3-step path. The first step is to employ a structure made up of what's referred to as mass timber, or cross-laminated timber panels and glue-laminated columns and beams. Utilizing the mass timber structure is by far the best strategy to achieve net zero carbon. And this is because the amount of carbon that was naturally absorbed from the atmosphere in the course of growing the wood in a forest far outweighs the amount of carbon emitted in the manufacture of all the other materials used on the project. And there's an added bonus to using mass timber in that, given the demise of the pulp and paper industry largely across the province, we can promote an emerging CLT and mass timber industry across Ontario. The second step in our path to net zero carbon is to utilize materials that have a high recycled content, which means minimizing the use of raw resources, reducing use of plastics, concrete, and steel, which are highly polluting to manufacture, and simply limiting the number of assemblies used on the project overall. And because we are using all wood components that, when assembled together, act as not only the structure of the building, but act as the enclosure and the interior finish of the building as well, we're able to eliminate a lot of other assemblies that we would have needed to cover up, say, a structure of concrete and steel. And finally, the third step is to utilize materials that have low embodied carbon simply by virtue of them having been locally sourced or produced, thereby reducing transportation costs from where they are made to where they are assembled. So promoting a buy local philosophy. And why are we doing this? Why are we looking at net zero carbon? Why is that important? As of May 2023, last year, City of Toronto is the first city in North America to set whole building embodied carbon caps on new city-owned buildings. Caps are optional for private buildings, but future versions of the Toronto Green Standard may include mandatory requirements for all new developments. And in Vancouver, new buildings are now required to report their embodied carbon emissions as part of the building permit application process. And starting in January next year, there will be mandatory reductions in embodied carbon for buildings of certain type, including municipal ones, municipal-owned buildings. So these trends will only continue, especially for new capital infrastructure projects, and this facility will put Tiny Township ahead of that curve. Again, leading by example. Up next, our path to water conservation. This is a 3-step path again. The first step is to harvest rainwater, which we're getting an awful lot of recently. We want to use that for any irrigation or gray water conveyance. The second step is to reduce water usage by employing low flow fixtures, water conserving appliances, and condensate recovery on HVAC equipment. The third step is to use drought-resistant plantings for any landscape buffers, which will eliminate the need for irrigation altogether. And why are we doing this when Ontario's 4 of 5 Great Lakes collectively account for about 84% of North America's fresh water and approximately 21% of the world's surface fresh water? And besides, we have a municipal water line bisecting the site. We're doing this because excessive water withdrawal can harm aquatic ecosystems, and climate change can alter precipitation patterns that lead to periods of drought. By reducing water demand, we decrease the strain on municipal water infrastructure, much of which is already at capacity across Ontario. We reduce energy needed to treat and convey water. We reduce energy utility bills and future-proof buildings by making them more resilient and economically viable. So again, this project can lead by example, utilizing this path to water conservation. And our final path is to biodiversity, which is another 3-step path. The first being by having committed to limiting our development footprint on the site through achieving project goal number 1, our low impact development initiatives, we limit our disturbance on the natural landscape. The second step is to provide native plantings to support local wildlife. And the third step is to encourage habitat connectivity by planting pollinator gardens and supporting and connecting existing wildlife corridors, which will be identified in our environmental sustainability plan. And why are we doing this when Tiny's forests and farmlands vastly exceed its urban areas? Because in 2022 in Montreal, Canada was instrumental in driving the United Nations to adopt Canada's biodiversity plan globally, which resulted in investment in Canada of $800 million in Indigenous-led conservation initiatives. Ontario's biodiversity contributes significantly to Canada's overall ecological health, making its conservation of farmland and forests important biodiversity initiatives beyond provincial borders and of crucial importance in Tiny Township. I think all of you are aware that the township contains some of the best agricultural land, in addition to the groundwater beneath the surface being some of the purest in Ontario. So again, observing a path to biodiversity, this project can lead by example. And our fifth project goal is to achieve a post-disaster standard. In the context of building design and construction, the primary objectives of post-disaster design include enhancing the resilience, safety, and sustainability of buildings to prevent damage and ensure rapid recovery from extreme weather events such as earthquakes, floods, hurricanes, and other events. In the Ontario Building Code, a post-disaster building is defined as one that is designed to remain operational and functional during disasters to support emergency response and recovery efforts. Key aspects of that would include structure and cladding designed to withstand seismic and wind loading, bracing of equipment and interior suspended fixtures, provision of emergency power, designing flexible layouts that can be easily modified, and infrastructure that can be upgraded as new technologies become available. And so that concludes Unity Design Studio's portion of the presentation, walking through some key environmental, public space, and accessibility initiatives of the project. Again, we thank you for your time and are grateful for any feedback that you can provide to us. And I now hand it over back to Tim to review your questions.
Thank you, Janet, for that extensive review of the facility and all the benefits that we see for the public areas and the accessibility features that are within this. I think it was covered off a lot of information in a short period of time, plus also highlighting a lot of the environmentally responsible items at the township. And just as a little side note to that, the township did commit to 2030 that we would see a 30% reduction in our operations greenhouse gas reductions. Which we've been working hard at through different vehicle purchases and how we light the buildings and manage that. This will also play a key role in us achieving that goal by 2030. And also, we did commit to a 6% reduction of greenhouse gases for the entire municipality. And those are doing things like installing charge stations throughout our facilities, making sure that what we do have is environmentally friendly. And also, the part that our residents are taking, you see a lot of electric vehicles out there, a lot of hybrid vehicles, which all contribute to the reduction of greenhouse gases. So I think we all play a role in achieving those goals. So we're at the question and answer period right now, and we'll just remind everybody that the questions need to relate to the public spaces or accessibility features. So we're, like as the Mayor Evans did say, we're looking for what you thought was great, what you think we may have missed, or maybe some further details that people would like to hear about it. We do have two sources of questions coming in through our virtual, and JF Robitaille, our engineering manager, will be our moderator, taking the questions and reading them out as he sees them online, and then we'll alternate between online and then live here in the chambers. Again, what we want to do, if your questions don't get answered tonight, then just a reminder, newtownhall@tiny.ca. And we just want to make sure, again, that everybody has their opportunity to speak. And we also make sure that we respect each other's and be appropriate and throughout, and make sure that the questions we can answer them properly. So at this point, we'll take a listen to JF, and we'll start maybe with a virtual question first. No virtual questions? Okay. So that makes it easy. So why don't we have, if you want to come up one at a time, I see first Mark, come on up. And then, if you just want to have a seat, there's a little button on the front of the microphone. If you can push that, because these are recorded, so everything. So if you can just state your name before you begin so that we have that. And then please ask your question and we'll do the best. Just one more, if we can't answer the question, then we'll make sure that we can provide the answers. We don't, the three of us don't have the infinite answers to all the questions that may come up, so we'll do our best. Thank you. Please proceed, Mark. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Tim. So Mayor Evans and staff, Mark Vanderhayden. I'm a full-time resident in Tiny, live near the end of the 13th concession. I think the proposed facility looks quite impressive. Along with that comes a lot of related costs for new build. And I want to state outright, I've been here a number of times, I support a better working environment for the staff, people working in Tiny, working for us in Tiny, so I'm happy there's initiative underway. I was concerned that the project goals didn't address Tiny's vision, which is respecting tradition and the values to protect us from debt and respecting our rural character and charm. And that's part of what my question is. When I look at all of this as feedback, I think this building feels and looks excessive and somewhat inconsistent with the cottage and rural character of the community. So my question is, can we expand because I understand part of today is getting feedback, can we expand the mandate, looking at the use of public spaces, looking at the facility to also consider, do we need all of that? Can we consider other more modest and I would say appropriate solutions to what's needed here in Tiny?
I'll start with that. I think one thing that you'll see through the presentation that Janet did emphasize is that sense of community and a hub, and we are looking for input from the public on all those public spaces, whether it be displays. We have a great talent of artists within Tiny, both musical and artistic, and also the different heritages that are involved in the township, and that's one of the things that we do want to make sure that's expanded and part of those visual public areas. The public areas are both interior and exterior too. We want to emphasize that it's not only inside of the building that we want to make sure that we can display different things, allow those different types of items, but also the exterior of the building. We're very fortunate. We're adjacent to county forests across the road and beside us, very close to the rail trail. So we have a lot of those outdoor activities, and that's what we're kind of looking for from input from the public is those enhancements. Also, the one comment, and we're looking for, if people feel there's too much of that public space that we're offering and looking at. So I think those features are being looked at, and it's one thing we want to emphasize. And I don't know, I think
Can I just refine and then if you could answer as well? So the last part is really what I was looking at, that the mandate is broadened to say, is it too much? I like what you're thinking of doing with the public space. Is it too much? You know, when I look at the lobby and everything, so I really would like to know, would we consider, geez, do we really need all this?
We're taking the input from individuals and reviewing that and what the needs of the overall community are. And that's what we'll be looking at as far as the public space. We're trying to create a sense of community, a community hub here. And so we'd consider those as part of that, like the public recreational space that we have, for example, and seeing how that plays into our overall goal, what we're trying to achieve with the facility. Mayor Evans?
Great, thanks, Tim, and thanks for the question, Mark. Just to touch on a couple of things. This facility is an amalgam of 7 existing facilities. So
Yeah.
I understand when you look at the one versus the other, like if you look at it in the context of this building and you look at the new one and go, geez, it's a lot bigger. The administration portion that was on the slide that was up there is approximately 21,000 square feet. And that's just as we are right now. And as Janet mentioned, there's one area, one pod set aside for future growth. Currently, we're at about 18,500 square feet. So we're going from roughly 18 to roughly 21,000 square feet. So and that basically includes the expansion area for the future area. So it's not like I don't think, being extreme or egregious by going and making it that much larger. In terms of the public space, we've got obviously a council chambers, which is going to be a little bigger than where we are now. We're 55 people now, and we're going to technically.
We're not full though.
We're not full, but we have, let's say we're going to go to roughly 135 plus the community room. And that's it right now. We don't have anything else in terms of internal public facilities. So, if people don't want to have a community room, that's certainly your opinion. If you have an opinion and you don't want to get rid of that, we can look at it. But keep in mind, I just want to keep in mind, we're moving from 7 to 1. And that's where you see the size scale. Sometimes I get it, it's thinking, wow, this is a lot of people in place. But we were looking, when we added and looked at what we've done so far, and this is part of the process that was begun in early 2023 with Tim and his team and working with Janet to look at, and it's not totally finalized yet because we're looking at different work functions as well. Like some existing facilities that we have don't require offices per se, maybe hoteling, things like that. So, and the synergies that come from combining and efficiencies, we're looking for those as well. But we don't think we're being too untoward by saying we're going from 18 to 21 in terms of staff for a facility that's a minimum life of 60 to 60 years. So I don't know what the world will look like in 60 years or what we'll need, but given the realities of today, we think we're being pretty financially prudent and responsible, frankly, in terms of addressing the immediate need that we've had since roughly 2015.
Okay.
So I hope that answers the question a little bit.
More or less, but to reiterate,
Okay.
feels excessive,
Yep.
large. I would like the mandate of the committee looking at what we're doing with all of it to say, do we need all of this? And make sure on the table is this the right way to spend our money? I do think you need a better facility. I do question whether all of this is necessary. Please make it part of the mandate to say, do we really need all of this? Is there anything that we can do that would cost us much less?
And appreciate that. And that's, council, that's the reason why the ad hoc committee was being developed, so we can garner that public input and through a committee that can report back to council on the findings. So that's why we're encouraging people to sign up for this ad hoc committee. So as you just indicated, those thoughts and feelings can be conveyed and put together and then logically and organized way to back to our committee and back through council.
Okay, I missed your deadline, sorry.
Pardon me?
I missed the deadline for the committee.
Yeah, well, it's going to be coming up to council on August 7th for further discussion.
We do, I can't say what council will move on that on next week, but I would assume that, I'm pretty confident that we'll reopen the enrollment process. So we didn't have enough people to fill it. So I will encourage everybody that if you want to take an active role in determining how this facility looks for the next 100 years, please do get involved. And it will be a primarily majority public committee. We'd like to get a broad base of society, so young, old, everybody to get some good opinions coming in. And it's a great opportunity to put your imprint on a facility that's going to represent Tiny for the next century.
Okay.
Great.
Tim, there is a comment that I would like to make.
Oh, sorry, Janet?
Yes, there is a comment that I would like to make to Mark raised the notion of heritage, and that's really, really important. We are champions of maintaining and supporting every community's heritage. And we understand a building like this, built in basically 2027, having another lifespan of 60 years, like in 60 years from now, this will be a heritage building, just like the existing building that you're in was built in 1967, and its 60-year lifespan comes up in 2027. So we felt it not appropriate to try to replicate the kind of cottage aesthetic for a building like this because of the site, because of the resources that we're using, all natural materials. We want to use local limestone, local wood, that it looked very much like the forest that it's going to be situated in. And we were hoping for something that looked, that wasn't trying to replicate a history that is already there and should be protected, but we wanted to be able to look forward sustainably and use the resources in the natural site and have it look very much like the site that it's situated on.
Is there a commitment to local builders, more local people doing it? I'm surprised we're, already outside of the community on a lot of this.
We will be through the construction manager process. That's where we're going to be following construction manager at risk. And things will be put out on open tender, open procurement, just as we do with all of our items today. We do use that electronic process to make sure that we also get the best value. We want to make sure that we control our costs. But obviously, as you'll see through and Public Works awards, the majority of the jobs we do award to a lot of local people, is what we do want to encourage. However, we also want to make sure we get the best value for our facilities. So That will be, obviously, it will be an open process, and it won't be just select that somebody comes in and says, I want this, this, and this. It'll be all through an open process, bidding process.
Okay, thank you. I think my
Thank you.
2 minutes are up.
Appreciate it.
I think we have some questions from online, and so JF, if you want to.
Our first question comes from Pamela, and she asks, will it be possible, while protecting the natural heritage on the site, for residents to be able to bike or hike on a trail or the existing one from Concession 9 South all the way across to Concession 8?
Yeah, thanks, Pamela, for your question. Yes, in a nutshell, we're doing our studies on the site, all of our environmental studies, making sure that we don't impact the environment, and when there is items that do need protection, we can do that. I think the one main thing on it is controlling this site. When we do find things on it, we're going to be able to better manage the site than currently we do today. Plus, also, we can take advantage of some of the unique features that we have, not only on this site, but within Tiny, and make sure we provide education for both our youth and all of our residents that we have within the township. The other exciting thing about the location is it's about 135 acres, so it's a large parcel of land. And we're very close to the county forests and also the rail trail, which is just down the road. The key thing is that we do know the county is interested in making sure that we partner with them and that we can also develop not only our grounds, but in cooperation with the county. The county is very excited to continue to enhance their forests and make sure that we all use them. So I think this will be a great partnership. It's a great area, and we'll be able to provide lots of exciting opportunities to be both active outside and inside, but also connect to some of the features that are adjacent and close to the property. Thank you. We can come now to a public question. Thank you.
Do I press the button?
State your name and then
My
your question.
name is Sandra Walty. I live here in Tiny. I'm very happy to have this counselor on board, that they've done a lot. With the presentation, I agree to disagree, and I piggyback onto the previous person. I feel that it is beautiful. It is bringing the building to 21st century, and we all want to work in a beautiful environment. However, COVID have brought us a new 21st century work, live, wellness environment. I believe that the building is a little bit too excessive. If we can look at the current instance, the current need, the design, the usage, what kind of statistics has been done for the last, since this counselor has been in place, to say how many walk-ins we had. Did we have 50 or 100? The growth of Tiny, what is it going to be on a long-term, like 3-year goal? Is it going to grow to 100,000, 200,000? What are some statistic? We are not seeing the statistic of the utilization of services, of people working from hybrid model. Also, for future planning, growth, are we looking at human resources? How many headcount are we going to need if the township grows to tens of thousands? How many people are we going to need to administer that growth? What kind of budget? Across North America now, as we see, office spaces are so cheaply to be rented right now because people are cutting back on office space. For the building, for the public spaces, what kind of utilization are we looking to have? Is it going to be revenue generated? Are we going to have rental for parties or retirement party or anything like that? Or are we going to pay for the beauty? You look at township like Springwater, around the community or other township around, what kind of building they have. I mean, yes, we are looking at a beautiful building with all the environmental study and everything, but then we have to look at our demographics. What is our age group in this demographic to be paying for this for multi-generational? So all I'm asking this council, because we are hearing all kind of noise, what is the current need, what is the future growth need, how can we build something small, like we have one child today, we need 1 bedroom. We plan to have 4 kids, we'll need 4 bedrooms. So all I'm saying that we should really, really look in the heart and soul of people that brought this counselor here to listen to us.
I think we've got the sense of what your question is, and
So
I think
try-
I can answer it.
Okay.
As we stated at the top, we are moving forward with the building. The building is moving forward. The mayor was very clear. We've done functional studies, which shows how much space that is required within for the current staff and the ability to grow. We know we are going to grow. The township has grown from a population. It's also grown significantly from a staff level. The service expectations of our residents has grown in recent years. So the service levels have increased. The amount of staff required to provide those service levels have increased. I think the mayor was very clear on the fact that we have multiple facilities now with staff located throughout the township in different locations, and we wanted to centralize that location. So these are the types of decisions that were made, and the functional design, you can see that. There's a Public Works report, 024-24, that does state, and it shows the functional design on how we figured out how much space is required, and also it anticipates growth. The one thing that you also need to see when it comes to the number of staff and the space we need is the number of students we require each and every year. In Public Works, for example, we have 16 summer students that help make sure that our parks are maintained, make sure that the grass is cut, the washrooms are clean, the garbage is picked up all summer long. In a variety of other departments in recreation to pull off the program that we pull off. We have a lot of summer students. We don't have space for these people to operate properly within our facilities. So all these have been considered. The demographics, the township is actually ahead of what the projected growth was for this township. We're a couple thousand people ahead of what we were projected at being, and we continue to grow. There's more full-time residents than we used to be a third, now we're about a half. So the township is growing. The expectations of the service levels are growing. This facility cannot support that moving forward.
So what you were saying, it has grown, what percentage it has grown?
I don't have the actual numbers in front of me on percentages, but the township has grown. I've lived up here all my life, and it's grown significantly from when I was a kid up here. And it continues to grow with the more full-time residents that are coming and moving up here full-time than we've had before. So those studies were done. I encourage you to take a look at that previous report where you can see the functional study, you can see the staff that we have, and you can see the anticipated growth that we're looking at within that. It's also, as the mayor did consider, because you mentioned about when we talk about hoteling and people working from home. I think one thing that we explained this in a couple of the other PICs that's important to understand is that when you're in a rural community such as Tiny, we don't have one individual that deals with one specific need. For myself, I deal with everything from porta potties to bridges. And a lot of us are like this in staff. We don't deal with just a very minute amount of things or a limited amount of items. You'll notice our staff deals with a wide variety of different topics each and every day. And that makes it very difficult to have people working from home. Some positions can. But the vast majority of our positions require us to be here because we need to be here for the vast amount of expectations within our job descriptions. So it is a little more unique than it is in larger centers that may have very dedicated staff to do dedicated things.
I totally understand people who are multi-staff because I've dealt with one person, multiple issue, and I agree with that. It's just that when I look at the presentation, I see a lot of spaces that you're hoping to be utilized at some point.
Right. And that's the intent.
My concern.
And our time is up because we have a lot of questions, and that is the intent of making sure that the public space that is being made available is utilized properly so we effectively use it for our residents. So thank you for your question. Okay, we'll go to JF for another external question.
There's a question from Peggy. It is, what's the total size of the proposed facility, and will Tiny still require the community hall on concession 8 since the new facility will have public space?
Great, thank you, Peggy. The facility be about 32,000, 33,000 square feet in total. Don't forget that also includes things like the thickness of walls and stuff like that, so that does get incorporated into the square footage. We do have a room that's going to be a multi-purpose room in there for our programming. That's also going to have a kitchen, as we noted. We do have our TTCC, the Tiny Township Community Center on Concession 8. At this point, we will be maintaining our facilities. It's great offerings. It's a beautiful piece of property we have there. We continue to try and encourage that for different types of events. The TTCC is larger and Wybridge than what we'd be seeing in this new facility. So the plan at this point is continue to maintain these facilities. They do have some unique things at TTCC. We see a lot of use there for weddings and different types of events like that it's very popular for. Our Wybridge Community Center has a gymnasium in it. We do use that for a lot of our programming that we do have, and also our community centers. So those are things that we'll be looking at as we move forward. But at this point, we don't have any direct plans on what we're going to do with those facilities as far as disposing of them or maintaining or enhancing them. Thank you, Peggy. Somebody from the crowd? Oh, I think we have somebody on the way up, and then thank you. Can you state your name and your question, please? And make sure your question's related to public space, please. Thank you.
Good. Natalie Freitas, I'm full-time resident and also come from one of the founding families of the area. So I have a few questions. So number one, you mentioned about construction manager. So I just want to know if you're going to be looking for core certified. Is that going to be one of the criteria for a contractor?
We're going to, through the procurement process, we'll be working with a model and all the certifications, yes, that are going to be required to make sure that we have construction manager. It's going to go out to open tender or proposals, and we're going to have a very tight contract. We're using very similar models to what the county uses. It puts the construction manager at risk, puts the individual works for us.
So we do a pre-qual, and I'm very familiar with that procedure.
Good.
So you'll do a pre-qual and then from there?
We'll have, and there will be a very long list of qualifications and requirements that they have to meet.
So back to the building. So I just find the building, it is nice. I just find it's very cold looking. It's not very welcoming and warm. There was, especially with all the wood, I just found there was too much wood, no living wall or a water feature in the main area. I didn't find anything that looked, at one of the meetings, I put on the wall something, an indigenous feature or something like that, and I didn't see any of that in the design. Any indigenous features is very, very, so indigenous features, very good flow, roundness and things like that, and I didn't see that in here. And I think I only saw 2 meeting rooms, unless you're planning on enclaves, telephone rooms and things like that. I didn't really see that in the staff space or collaborative spaces. Another thing I noticed about the skylight, so with my previous experiences, is skylights, direct sun does come down and into staff's eyes, so it could be, I just wondered if there's some kind of a retractable blinds or things like that that will happen in council or in those for the customer service desk, because it looked like they were there.
Can I know you wrote them down. Can I knock them down one at a time? Because my memory is good, but it's not great.
I can wrap it up and send you an email. How's that?
No, because I'd like to, these are excellent questions. Because I think one thing you've really, and thank you for coming forward, you've got some great questions about, within the renderings, we didn't show a lot of the different types, but as you gathered from Janet's presentation, that's what we're looking for the public input for. We want to make sure it's warm. We want to make sure it's comforting. It's just a bunch of blank walls. You look in there, and you're right. If you look in a room that's blank walls, it looks cold. And that's what we're looking for the public input.
Well, I found the ceiling looked, like she said, we try not to do cottagey, but that looked like so cottagey. Like it's nothing, like this looks like something rendered from the 80s or the 70s. It's very, to me, outdated. It's not a current feature. I also didn't see anything in regards, again, to, I didn't see a smudging room anywhere for Indigenous people who want to come to the building, or even maybe dual-purpose room, smudging room, quiet room. I haven't seen any, I didn't see anything like that. So I just, yeah, if we could stay away from some of the too much wood feature there, like a living wall or water feature, I think would be more representative of the township in the build.
And that's exactly what we want to. I'd like to also talk about the meeting rooms. What Janet did point out through there was some, those would be public meeting rooms. This is where, if you've ever been up at our current front lobby, there's zero privacy up there. If you have a personal issue or a private issue that you want to discuss, it's very difficult to have that discussion up front. We have one boardroom in this building, and it's small. You can only fit about 7 people in there. So that takes away from a lot of the privacy, a lot of the dignity type conversations that we'd like to have with people, because some of them are uncomfortable discussions. Some of them maybe people just need that privacy, and this current facility totally lacks that. So what you saw in there, the 20-person room, for example, that would be where we can have our committee meetings, our committees of council. I sit on a couple of committees, and I know a lot of staff does. Currently, we sit in here, and it's a very difficult place to have a proper meeting with the proper AV. So that'll be able to provide a proper room for that. But it also gives some good privacy that maybe you need more privacy than just we have at the front counter in this new proposal, and the accessibility, obviously, of all these features.
So in regards to the front counter, was there a proposal for glass barriers? Or is it just soundproofing barriers between each?
I'll let Janet answer that, because she had a couple of comments about
because I've encountered an issue that I have to resolve in my current position.
Oh, okay.
So where we have glass barriers and people are talking into the glass as opposed to the slots, and the pass-through slots are not big enough. So something we need to address. So better, I'm just telling from experience that there is an issue with that. So you might look at either, probably you don't have those issues here where people are going over barriers or counter space and trying to assault the staff behind. So maybe
staff safety is the key.
So that's something to look into before. If you're going to build it right the first time, then have to come back and address all these, user issues, I'm going to call them. So when you're using it, that's when you see there's an issue. So the other thing she mentioned, and I'm kind of confused about it, was this sound symbol. So is she talking about sound masking?
We'll let Janet, maybe you can answer the 2 questions about the barriers and also what
No, for sure. All of the questions were really, really great, and we really appreciate them. And these are all things that we do think about. Like, we are mindful of wanting to create a very warm and organic building. Hence, we're introducing a lot of the curves in the actual building shape, the curves in the council shape, and we are looking for a lot of natural materials to be used as backdrops for future enhancement by Indigenous groups for all kinds of different displays, art, creative things that we want to showcase. Because we kind of want to make the public lobby in and of itself like a gallery, number one. So, and we are also looking, as we go into design development and working with the ad hoc committee, to actually, because we have located a number of features within the building that we're saying we want public input. It's either like the subject of a public art competition, or we want input from committees as to what they would like to see. We would like to see smudging ability to happen almost anywhere. We will have the HVAC requirements that we need in order to provide the exhaust that is required, but we're looking for input as to where in this building would you like to have that? Do you want it in all the meeting rooms, in the council chambers, outside? In terms of the skylights, we completely understand that, and we have ways to mitigate through fritted glass or other technical means to ensure that there is no glare that staff are having to mitigate, or anybody in the council chambers. And we have software that we undertake sun studies, so we can actually see what the conditions are going to be like at any time during the day, at any time during the year. So we can ensure that we have no surprises and that we design accordingly. And because we have those technical tools, allows us to say, you know what, it would be lovely to have a skylight over in the lobby over the service desk. It would be lovely to have a skylight in the council chambers, but we'll know how to mitigate the negative effects on that. So in terms of privacy, the having access to the meeting rooms, we've got the large community room, we have the council chambers as a meeting room, we've got a 20-person, a 12-person, and smaller rooms for up to 46 people. So people coming in wanting to have private conversations with staff, there is space available for them to do that. And in terms of barriers at the customer service counter, we have done a lot of work with different public agencies, from hospitals to police stations, and we have taken down barriers that were put up that they found just exacerbated not very good relations between staff and public, and we have put them up when we had to for hygienic reasons. So we'll be looking at all of those details so that we can ensure that if we have to pivot for whatever reason in some years from now, we know how to do that. So appreciate all of the questions. They're very salient, and a lot of them will be addressed mindfully during the design development stages.
Thanks,
so
Fran. It's got to be quick because
it is, it's a
we
quick
have
question.
a lot of questions. I want to make sure.
I'm just asking, are the windows, are you going to do a flap study?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. We have triple glazed windows. They'll probably be fritted so that we can ensure that there's no danger to birds.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Great questions. JF, we'll go to a virtual question.
Yeah, our next question is from Alan. He says, "This is all wonderful, but you have not presented why this new construction is needed and what is the anticipated increase in taxes over the coming years?" And I believe Haley would like to answer this one.
Yes, thank you, Alan, for your question. I'm actually going to try and answer a couple of the questions that I see in the chat because I know that this is very important for people to understand. We've done an analysis back and provided this analysis in our Public Works Report 01324. Happy to send that to anybody that requests it. This analysis provides the basis for the preliminary estimate, which was 25 million, 25.6 million. What staff did is we inquired with our lenders, our potential lenders, Infrastructure Ontario at the time, of what a potential debenture cost would be for the township to undertake this financing. The rate at the time was 4.71%. Now, we do know that rates are dropping, and we hope that by the time we get to fulfilling the financing, that we obtain even lower interest rates. But at that interest rate, we would be financing about 21.9 million of that 25.6 million. And this is because we've already raised 463,000 in taxes over the last several years, so we wouldn't have to raise that again. Even at a 0% tax rate, we're going to continue to raise that amount of money. We also have potential grant funding through two different grants, but both through FCM, which is the Federation of Canadian Municipalities. The total of those two grants that we're going to try and get is 1.7 million. And we also have the existing administration building that has a potential sale. We had an appraisal done. At the time, before the appraisal, we estimated about $2 million. The appraisal actually came in at about 2.1 million, so we weren't far off. So with all the potential grant and sales revenue, we're estimating about 3.7 million is what we're going to receive. So at the end of the day, we'd be financing about 21.9 million. And if we finance that 21.9 million over again, a potential debenture or loan over 30 years at that 4.71%, that would cost a total of 1.369 million a year. But we have already raised, like I said before, that 463,000. And in my analysis, I actually didn't even include the 63, I included the 400. So what does this mean to you as a taxpayer? It means that approximately for every $100,000 in assessment, so if you take your MPAC assessment, which is not your market value of your home, it's your MPAC assessment is issued by MPAC, take $100,000 for every $100,000 in your assessment, it would cost about $21, and that is financing this loan over 30 years. And if we had that loan as of January 1st, 2025. Realistically, that is not going to be what the impact will be in 2025 because the building is projected to be built over the next few years. So it'll even be less than that, probably half to a third. So take your assessment, and we did provide an analysis at $350,000. That would be about $76 a year or $6.39. And again, if we are doing this over the next few years, the impact will be even less than that. So I hope that answers your question, Alan. And I believe there's a couple other questions in the chat that are asking about grant revenues and sale revenues of the potential building.
If I could, Haley, just want to reiterate, clarify that when Haley was talking about assessment value and $100,000 of $21, that's per year. It's not monthly. Just want to make sure that's per year. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I guess we'll go to the audience. I believe, sir, you had your hand up before that. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor. Vlad Miller, Tiny Township. I do have a comment and a question. Question would be, well, I'm very grateful for an opportunity, and I'm grateful that there's public engagement happening. Could you point me to an event in the past where outcome of a public engagement was that we are going to build, period, build? I understand it's been decided before, but was there ever an event that public instructed councillors to proceed with this?
Well, thanks for the question, Vlad. No, there was no event publicly that was run by council since 2015. It's your council acting on your behalf in the best interest of the township.
Okay, so that's my question. And the comment to the feature, one of the feature of the building, I think one predominant feature of the building is its size. And it's so excessive that I agree with Mark there too. There's no need for that. And so no other feature is worth discussing when the scope is out of the scope. There is an English sentence somewhere there. Thank you.
I do encourage you to take a look at the functional report that was done before you comment on the size. That shows the facility, what we need from a staffing standpoint and the staffing count that's in there. The study is very thorough. It shows every department, every need of every department and every staff member with a marginal amount of growth. It also contains within the building a post-disaster. Right now, the township really does not have a post-disaster facility. We do practice our exercises for disasters such as ice storms, tornadoes. We do these on a regular basis at the township to make sure that our staff and our equipment and our operations are able to respond to an emergency. We saw what happened in Quebec with the ice storms, with flooding, all these types of events. And the township does not have what I would consider a post-disaster facility that would be able to would be still around when these happen. You will be looking to us in a disaster for direction and for support. And right now, this current facility, and we do not have a facility that is capable of a post-disaster. So there's a lot that goes into it. So I do encourage you to take a look at that report. It's very helpful, and it will really describe how the staffing levels are determined. I noticed there's a question on here about what was the basis for determining the space amount, and the same thing. We do a functional report that identifies all the positions we have and what the needs are. And the staff space is being designed around the Ontario Public Service Modern Office Space Standard. Again, that's located on our website. today. And what you find out is a lot of offices are going to be smaller. So there's not going to be large offices, and I want to get that right off the table, right off the bat. My office will be smaller, and most of our offices will be a little bit smaller than we currently have today. So this will be built to that standard that meets all those requirements. So I do encourage people to look at that. It's very educational. Thank you.
Surely the students we hire for summer are not intended to sit in the office, right? So we can use it as an argument that...
You're reading my questions. That was another online question about the summer students. You're right. In the area of parks, for example, the majority of the time they're out cutting lawns and taking care of stuff.
Yeah.
But we have a large recreational program. We don't have enough space for them. We end up having to have them in other buildings. Recreational programming is not just the programs that happen outside. There's also, we have them for public engagement, for invasive species management, a lot of these other types of activities that do require office space. In Public Works, we have a couple of engineering students that are helping out with our engineering projects and these types of things. The clerk's office and a variety of other staff positions that are office positions that we do use students that do require office space.
Understand.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great
question. This is my third time I'm spending digesting really the content of it.
Excellent.
Thank you very much. And I looked at it, I did felt like we are building UNESCO headquarters for Georgian Bay. It's just that size, right?
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. JF, I think we'll go to the questions.
Our next question is from Kaylee, and she asks, what was the basis for the determined space amount?
And I think, thanks, Kelly. Again, I think that was the question we just answered. It's a known system that's used, a functional analysis, which takes a look at what the features are, what the requirements are for the individual staff members and how much space they need. That is located. It's a study that was performed, and we do have that located. It's a public document that anybody can get a hold of. Thank you. I think somebody from the audience. Karen, come on up.
Of course you know I'm going to speak.
No, everybody's welcome to speak. We encourage to get all the input as we have with our public space
Hello,
and
everybody.
accessibility.
Hello. First of all, we don't have 18,000 square feet here. It's 13,000 square feet, and I know that from the Black Burnside report. So that's 5,000 square feet off. Let's face the elephant in the room. You're talking about population growth, but we don't have any septic, and there's really not a growth policy here in Tiny. We got a lot of elderly people here, and they might not be with us too long, so it's going to stay pretty stable. And another elephant in the room is we got AI approaching us with planning department. That'll be reducing staff needs. The whole thing is about you need 156% more office space, but I can't see that we're going to have that much growth in staff, especially like the STR program. Like, you hired all this staff for that, but the licensing aren't at your number 300. And if I was running this, I would be laying some people off. I wouldn't be hiring more people. I just don't feel that we need 84 office spaces or whatever the actual count is, because there's really not a lot of growth. Can you elaborate on that, AI and the staff needs?
I'm not going to touch on the AI. That's purely hypothetical, and it's your comment, but I'll certainly take it for information. As far as the space, the 13,000 in this building, yes, you're right. But we have 7 facilities. That's 18,000 square feet.
So
That's what's going
why
into
would
the
you
building.
take the fire chief, for instance, he's already got an office and it's sound. Why would you take him away from the volunteers and to be able to mentor him and be on location? Like, I just don't understand, like, that's just one person, I know, but why would you move him away from his staff?
Because he's also part of a management team that manages 5 different facilities within the township. And it's in his best interest. He'll still be working on a rotating basis, but he needs to have an office as part of a management team for the township.
Okay, and we have 3 community centers here, and like I've known some families that are from here, and they've been here since the 1800s. Just recently, one of their daughters got married at the Concession 8 Community Hall, and they're very proud to have their functions there. I just don't understand, like, I've watched both virtual meetings and this one, and the lady in the back there, in the black, she was the only one that had made a suggestion in these 3 meetings about putting something in the public space. These 3 meetings, there's not been one person that has said they want a public space, they want a hub, they want to hang out. They don't come up here to hang out in a town.
Really, do you have a question? We already said we're not going to discuss the needs for the building. The needs are easily apparent and irrefutable.
I disagree, so I guess we're just not going to.
That's fine. But if you have a question about the public spaces in the building, which are right now a community room and a council chambers and a lobby. So if you have some comments on that,
I do.
you'd like to add. So if you'd like
I just want to say
out,
nobody wants any public space.
So you don't want a
You
council
know,
chambers, you
Dave,
don't
that
want a
I've
community
been pounding the
don't believe
pavement.
me. This is, what do you want?
Mayor Evans then. You know that I've been talking to hundreds and hundreds of people, and nobody wants any public space.
Okay, that's your comment. That's fine. We'll take it for information. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Karen.
Okay.
Okay. Next we'll do a virtual next, please.
The next question is from Kim. She's asking, is Tatham Engineering moving into the building? If so, why? Are they not a private company who bids on our projects?
The facility that we are looking at, those are considerations for additional office space that may be required. Tatham is currently located in our facility in a little bit of a dungeon around the corner. You know, the bonus of they take care of our septic reinspection program, which I think everybody in this room should be thankful we have. This is a significant, it's one of the only ones around on us managing our septic program here. If you're in a wellhead protection, it's every 5 years. If you're outside of wellhead protection, it's every 6 years. You need to prove your tank is pumped and it's functioning. So we can make sure that we're not filling our Georgian Bay full of the nitrates that are involved. We're not contaminating people's wells that surround a house because somebody may not take the effort to make sure that their tanks are pumped, cleaned, and maintained properly. This is critical as far as our environmental responsibility. We have 100% of our residents are on septic tanks. 100% of us, whether it's septic or very small percentage has holding tanks. And having them located in our facility is actually a good thing for Tiny. They work with our building department. They approve the septic systems that go in. They're able to work hand in hand with our staff. Otherwise, if they have to locate themselves another vendor in another town, another city, they have to travel here. There's an expense for that. There's an expense to have them situated in another office. Somebody's got to pay for it. It's not free. So when we offer them space in our facility for a very low cost, that cost is also passed along to the residents that don't have to pay the extra cost to have somebody coming from far away to inspect our septic systems. I live in Tiny, and I've seen many, many years ago where the bad septic systems were polluting our bay and affecting the quality of the water in our lakes. This program has been a significant program to help us improve the quality of our water, your drinking water, plus also having them located here helps with our efficiencies and making sure that we keep the cost minimal to our residents, plus also maximizing on the environmental benefits. Thank you.
I just want to also add to Tim's comment about the septic in Tatham. This year, we actually renegotiated our contract with Tatham and put a clause that we will renegotiate once we do figure out how much space they may need and what that agreement will look like when the new building is built. So that was put in as a clause in anticipation of the new building and what effect their space would have on the township.
Thank you, Haley. Jeff? Oh, are we at the audio? Okay, I'm sorry. I got myself out of order. Sorry about that. Thank you.
Hi, I didn't have any prepared questions when I came, but seeing the present, it's Greg Engels, full-time resident of Tiny. I didn't see much in this new millennial generation and things like that, this building seems to me, or from the presentation, was very kind of boomer generation. There wasn't much on the, because kids today, well, anybody below the age of 60 seems to be online presence. They like to do things not in physical and transportation, but online and virtually. And, you know, from what I saw with a huge reception area and a big long desk and private places to sit, it seems like that's in a different direction from where things are going in generally in society. People doing things online. We got our fire permit, our parking permit online through the city. And with the Ontario services, federal services, as much online as possible. Even though the public meeting spaces, I can see some need for that. But with things, I didn't see a lot of talk of kind of scoping things down and addressing this kind of online presence, right? Virtual meetings, smaller meeting rooms, infrastructure with Zoom sessions and things like that, making the online, most of the city's online business or transferring it online, reducing staff, reducing space. Maybe you can address some of those things.
Yeah, no, I'd love to. Through COVID, that really the township was actually a lot of leaders out of our local municipalities. We went online with most of our services almost immediately, which was very helpful. One of the things, and I'm assuming that Mayor Evans would want to weigh in on this too, but I think one of the things and that's one of the fears I have, is everybody has become basement dwellers. They have become less social. And I think one thing that we're trying to create, and this is why the public space, we want to maximize the use of this public space to try and get people out, get people to a central area, utilize the great outdoors that we have at this facility, and try and move away from sitting on the phone all day to try and get some public engagement and a sense of community and a hub in there, and try and get that community back. I think everybody in here probably remembers when there used to be massive community events and everything, dances, parties, whatever. A lot of that has disappeared, and I think it's a shame, especially in our society where we have such great ways to get around. We got, e-bikes can get over here real easy now, and those types of things. So I think that's one of the objectives in the public space, is to create that sense of community, create that hub that will maybe have people more engaged. But also the facility, I think Janet pointed out some great advantages in there. Maybe self-serve features. The township, and I'm not telling anything, a lie here, that there's some areas that struggle for connectivity from an internet, from cell service. How can we improve that? Maybe we can provide things within this facility that enables the public now has a place to go to do internet and those types of things, but in a very central area. So that's kind of the hub, and I understand what you're saying. Things are changing. Do I like it sometimes, being all tied to my phone all the time? I like talking to people. I like, having that public engagement, and that's what we'll continue to try and enhance that and try not to lose that we did have, and I'm sure the Mayor Evans would like to add on to that.
Yeah, thank you, Tim. Just quickly, thanks for the question. Appreciate that. We've already touched on how we're amalgamating 7 facilities into one. So the physical size that goes with that lends us and gives us the opportunity to provide a multifunctional type facility. So community hub is one aspect that we'd like to utilize. So if we're going to have 18,000, 21,000 square feet of facility just for staff, plus the council chambers, which is necessary, and possibly one community room, how do we maximize the use of that facility? And how do we do it in the benefit of people in Tiny? How many different functions can we operate and can we run and bring in and be adaptable for the future? And that's really the session that we have today. So online, we're getting a lot of ideas from a broad section of ideas, which is great. And I'll plug the committee again. We want to have public input. We want to make this representative of what makes Tiny unique. That's the whole point of this. And we have to deal with the immediacy of facility that's been out of date for over 10 years. But at the same time, how do we not just duplicate what we have, which is a lobby that may be, I don't know, very small, into something that people are proud of and is functional and saves money and improves life in Tiny. So that's what we're looking to do. So thank you for your comments, appreciate it.
Jeff, we have
I'm going to combine a couple questions here. One is from Mark. He asks, will the public outdoor space include basketball courts? And then we also have a similar question from Joan. She asks, is there a playground included in the site design?
excellent questions, and there's also another one there that from the township kids play area. So we knock all three of those down. That's exactly what we're asking for the input. You know, the township those half-court basketball courts are very popular. We've heard about the request for that before. Playgrounds, as you know, every year we invest about $100,000 every single year in new playgrounds in a different area within the township. And we're going to continue to do that to make sure we have excellent playgrounds. The township is so large that it's nice to have some of these remote areas. So this is the type of input that we are looking for the new facility, especially for that outdoor space. And to go back on the previous question, was create that sense of a community when they can come and there's a nice playground and a half-court basketball and those types of things. That's what draws people out. That's what gets people together. So that's the input that we've marked down, and we're definitely consider those types of things as our inputs into the public space. Thank you. I guess we have somebody from the crowd, from the attendees in the chambers here. Yeah, great. Oh, sorry, no, she hasn't asked a question yet in the back there, so maybe, and then if you don't mind, we can make sure everybody gets it.
It's just a comment to add.
Okay.
Should it need?
Yeah. Thank you. Everybody wants up.
Hi, my name is Fran. I'm also a descendant of area founder, about 300 acres. That was, I guess, over the couple hundred years, some Midland, some Tiny, Tay, whatever, all around. Anyways, you're using the word public. Is this like Tiny public, like citizens using this area, or is there a different public geography or whatever that you're talking about for using this facility?
That's excellent. You know, it would be, the intention is that the feedback we're looking at is our residents of the township and what they would like to see in the new building. I think throughout our area, we rent halls, for example. You don't have to be from Tiny to rent a hall. We'd rent halls to anybody who wants to rent the hall.
I mean, like foreign, you're looking at foreign public people, like from other countries, like, I don't, like, because there's like, I'm just trying to figure out what.
Public use would be anybody
who
that.
they're building this for, like, is it just for, like, you're building it with the Tiny people in mind, or are you building it because there's like other people you have it in mind?
No, our prime focus obviously is our residents. They're the ones that are funding the building, they're supporting the building, and they're getting services from this facility, and that would be our prime focus. But we also make sure that, visitors to Tiny, when they come here and they see the facility and they can participate in the area, that they also have an enjoyable experience in Tiny. We don't have closed doors. We do have areas like 4 of our beach parks, for example, that people from anywhere can come and they can buy a park pass and they can be there for the day. So the prime focus obviously is what do our residents want, and that's what we're looking for today. But also we also Tiny, although we're Tiny, we're very well known throughout Canada and around the world. We have visitors from everywhere. We have a very diverse resident base here, and so we want to make sure that we cover that off. But public is public. It would be non-staff areas that we want to look at.
I'm not an engineer or anything, but with like the rain yesterday, they're sure that this flat roof would be able to handle, since our systems had flooding in our streets, is that roof going to be able to handle something like that? And then seems like people are expecting that we're going to be having lots of disasters coming, saying that we've somehow managed with whatever has happened up till now, but our future disasters are going to be worse than disasters we've already had, and so you're planning a building, like there's something you know that we don't know or something?
Well, no, I don't have a crystal ball. I wish I did. No, it's a plan for the worst, hope for the best. And we are seeing a dramatic change in our weather patterns. Tornadoes are becoming, we're hearing more and more about these types of things, severe, intense weather systems that come through, wintertime, ice storms that we haven't historically seen. So I'm not saying that I can predict that coming forward, but we are seeing that. But as a township, we need to be prepared for that. And again, plan for the worst, hope for the best.
And so whatever that roof is,
Yes.
Yeah, that's a good question, Fran. I think
designed
Janet can touch on the roof, because we have had that question, and it's an important note to say and how it works. But yeah, in terms of emergency management, the new facility will have a dedicated location for that. And that is a requirement that we have to have as a township to be able to, we train twice a year, all of us, in terms of an event, and we have a full day scenario training. And currently, right now, we do not have a location for it. We do it in here, but this is not the functional location to do it in. But Janet, if you could just quick answer Fran's question.
No, I can, Mayor, and it's a great question. So absolutely, we have various building codes that we look to help us in modeling for some of these disasters. And when we look at a flat roof, absolutely, we have to be aware of the weight of the potential, massive snow loads, wind loads, as well as loading of water. If we're looking at control flow roof drains to ensure that we can mitigate any flooding. So we have technology on our side as a means to kind of control for these events. And so we're very mindful if we're promoting a sloped roof, we have to look at how we can capture the acceleration of water off of a sloped roof. And when we look at a flat roof, we have to look at control flow roof drains, the weight of water, if there's going to be storage capacity on the roof. So we're very mindful of these things, and we want not only to mitigate some of the things that we're seeing out there that we want to ensure our building can withstand, but we want to be kind of climate friendly as well. So we want the building to reflect the kind of conditions that we are facing right now and provide an appropriate design response. So great question. And all of these things will come to light in the second phase when we get into the detailed design and engineering.
Thank you.
yeah, no, I was just curious if it was like tiny public or if the push to doing all of this was coming from outside of tiny public. So anyways, all right.
Thank you for your questions. We have about 5 minutes left, so we'll take one quick virtual and see if we have enough time for one more Chambers question.
Okay, our next question comes from Patty. She's asking, what are the 7 facilities that will be amalgamated into this facility? And she also has a comment that if we want to draw more people out, more pickleball courts.
Well, I'll take the second one first. I drove by Palm Beach, and the fences are up at the redo at the pickleball courts in Palm Beach, but sorry for the delay on that. So yes, we know that pickleball is very popular. Neighboring municipalities, especially Collingwood, I've seen a growth in that, and we are taking that into consideration. In terms of facilities, the main facility is the one we're sitting in right now. We have 3 portables out in the back where the parking lots are. We have a fire facility in Wyvale. We have one in Wybridges too, but in Wyvale we have offices in that facility that'll be included in the new building. We have a water department on concession 8. You may have seen it sort of across from the airport. It's kind of tucked in behind. There's actually 12 people that work in there. We use the facility, the TTCC on concession 8 for our rec department. Director Leitch, have I got, and Wybridge as well, on a seasonal basis. Those are where our rec departments, and actually, no, year-round basis, actually, we use those. Clearwater, is that 7? Okay, great, thanks. Good. Hope that answered your question. Thanks for the question. Thank you.
Okay, I think we have, we can squeeze one more quick question from the gallery.
Just wanted to add on the list to have a Zen area.
A Zen area? Okay, great. Thank you.
For people who want wellness, yoga, whatever is there.
Perfect, thank you. There you go. Okay, we'll take one more question from the, does anybody in the audience have a question? Oh, sorry. No?
No, you're good.
My name is Alan Mackey. I've been a resident here since 1982. And my question is more around cost containment. I'm an engineer like yourself, and I've worked on designing buildings and supervising the construction. And there's never been a project that doesn't exceed their estimate. And there's nothing wrong with that, because once you get into the implementation stage, there's unknown things. You might run into, you know, some bedrock that you weren't aware was there. So that's normal. So I'm interested in knowing cost containment and how, you know, what kind of contingency reserve has been added into the construction costs to cover those sort of normal things. Now, some things are not normal if it's not properly managed, the construction, and that's, you know, it's different. But what kind of contingency has been put in here for the costs?
If you've been through that, you know what a Class D estimate is then from the costing. And if you took a look at the Class D estimate, there is contingencies that are built into that at this point. Our goal, and the construction manager at risk, that's why we picked that model, is that they work for us. They have a set budget. They have objectives. They don't make extra profit by change orders and encouraging change orders and those types of things. And you know from your experience, obviously, that's the kiss of death when you start having change order after change order. So when we go through our detailed design, I noticed there was a question in here. We're just at high level conceptual at this point. Once we get into phase 2, which is detailed design, once we're at that point, the construction manager, we're going to be able to comb through all this and find savings. And I'm not a believer in things that are cheap. Cheap are things that don't last very long. I like good value, and that's what we'll be looking as good value for our dollar. The contingencies are built in. Our charter that we developed talks about how we can manage our procurement, and we'll be looking at our procurement even further to ensure that not only are we fiscally responsible to our residents, but also to make sure that we don't have delays in the builds, because as you know, delays cost money. Delays, change orders, these are the types of things. Also, the studies we're doing on the site right now to minimize any impact, and some of those studies, fortunately, have already occurred, as Mayor Evans had noted, that the grounds have been looked at historically because there was a thought of an industrial park going in that area. So we will have controls in place, and the construction manager at risk is how one of the big tools, plus also making sure that we just keep our eye on the ball throughout the build and make sure that we put in what we need and go through these things line by line. So that's essentially, and I think Haley would also like to add something to it. And then then I'll follow up with the next steps.
Yeah, sorry, I was just going to add in that just to be specific, in the Class D estimate, there is a 25% contingency built in there.
Good.
Okay, thank you.
So just a couple of general comments that, first of all, I really am impressed with that design. And to me, this whole project is not a question of if, it's when. And if you want to leave this another 10 years, 20 years, the costs will just simply spiral out of control. So I think, you know, there's never a better time than now, especially given that the building you're in is exceeded its lifetime. And I think another thing that's really important to me as a resident is all the employees of Tiny work for our benefit. And I don't want to see the employees being unfairly treated by not having proper work facilities. So I think it's just a matter of common respect, because they're working for us to improve our community. So I'm totally in favor of what you're proposing here. And it's not a question of if, it's when.
Okay, well, thank you. Okay, well, I appreciate your comments, and thank you, everybody. We've reached our time limit. right now. And again, I'd like to just go through the next steps on where we're at with the process. So for as far as next steps, following the 3 PICs, which are complete now, staff will summarize our comments related to the public features for the TTAC and also for our committee, which is made up of staff and council, and for the new ad hoc committee. And again, please, when you see that come up, please volunteer for that. It's a great thing for our design and our budget. Next step, obviously, is the construction manager at risk. The RFP process that will be going out soon. August 7th at the council meeting, we'll be looking for the phase 2, and council is going to be discussing moving into phase 2. Phase 2 with the architect will kick off the detailed design and allow us to move forward with this facility. And then we're going to finalize design and costing to include suggestions from the PICs, and we're going to be presenting this to council at future council meetings. So this will all be very transparent. And when the costs are all known, we'll be obviously keeping everybody up to speed with staff and making sure council and the public is updated. We'll continue to keep our website updated with all the latest and greatest information so that you can read about what's going on if you can't attend a council meeting. So based on that, what I'd do is I'd like to thank everybody, all the staff that was involved, from Janet for participating, from Mayor Evans, again, like staff for helping organize in this event, and also for the time that the residents took out of their days to make sure that we get this valuable input to help us move forward with this new building. So again, thank you very much. We appreciate everything. Remember, new town hall at tiny.ca if you have further comments or questions, and we'll do our best to answer your questions. So thank you very much. Have a pleasant evening, and hopefully we'll see you all soon. Good night.
That was the update from the Township of Tiny. Keep watching for other news. Thank you.